Welcome to the discussion where we cut through the illusions and get straight to the truth. Today we're talking about a shift that has reshaped the country: cannabis legalization. For years, people fought to decriminalize marijuana, arguing it was time to end the senseless incarceration of nonviolent drug offenders, generate tax revenue, and regulate the industry to ensure safer products for consumers. Sounds great, right? But here's what they don't tell you. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's clean. In fact, the way cannabis legalization has unfolded, particularly in California, has exposed corruption, toxic contamination, and blatant disregard for public health. If you think you're getting pure, safe, state-regulated weed from a dispensary, think again. Legal doesn't mean safe. Here's the fantasy they sold you: legal weed will be regulated like food and medicine. You'll never have to worry about tainted products again. Weed from a dispensary is cleaner and better than street weed. And here's the reality: legal cannabis is often just as polluted, if not worse, than its black market counterpart. Many of the pesticides and toxins in these products aren't even tested for by the state. Corruption and negligence have allowed tainted cannabis to flood the legal market, exposing users to neurological toxins, endocrine disruptors, and carcinogens. We are not just talking about mild contamination. We are talking about highly toxic pesticides, synthetic THC, and chemicals that can lead to birth defects, infertility, and long-term brain damage. And that's being sold legally. Let's get into the specifics. Investigative journalist Paige St. John, who exposed these findings, discovered that many cannabis products, yes, even the ones with state approval labels, contain alarming levels of carcinogens, chemicals that cause cancer, endocrine disruptors, which affect hormones, fertility, and brain development, neurotoxins linked to Parkinson's, dementia, and other degenerative conditions. If you vape, pay attention. When cannabis is distilled into vape oil, any contaminants present in the original plant become highly concentrated. We're talking about chemicals that don't just sit in your lungs, they go straight into your bloodstream, your organs, and your brain. What did the lab tests reveal? Rolling papers, even from top-shelf brands, were found to be contaminated with toxic disinfectants. Some cannabis products contain DDT, a pesticide that was banned in the U.S. over 50 years ago. Petrine, a chemical that is a federal felony to use on cannabis, was found in multiple products, yet California wasn't even testing for it. That's just the beginning. Now let's talk about California's regulatory system, because this is where things get even more insidious. You would assume that if you're buying from a state-licensed dispensary, there's some real oversight happening. Wrong. California outsourced all testing to private laboratories, labs that make money by approving products quickly. The state set a weak standard by only requiring testing for 66 chemicals while completely ignoring others that are just as, if not more, dangerous. And how many recalls has California issued for tainted cannabis since legalization? 0. Not one single pesticide recall in 5 years. Not because the products were clean, but because the system wasn't designed to catch them. This isn't just negligence, it's a deliberate cover-up. Let's be clear, this isn't about an accident, a loophole, or an oversight. This is by design. California's cannabis industry was set up to be a cash cow, and everything else, including your safety, comes second. $5 million was spent on a state marketing campaign to convince you that legal weed is safe. Tax revenue was prioritized over consumer safety. State regulators ignored whistleblowers, even those working inside cannabis testing labs. They didn't regulate cannabis like food or medicine. They regulated it like a profit-driven industry, one that can cut corners, bribe officials, and flood the market with whatever product they want. When investigators tested nearly 600 products, a third of them contained dangerous chemicals that weren't even being screened for, and that's just what they found. Imagine what's still out there, being inhaled every single day. People like to say, well, if you don't trust dispensaries, just buy from an organic grower. Sure, in theory. But let's think this through. Cannabis absorbs toxins from its environment better than most plants. It's literally been used to clean up radioactive waste. If it's grown near farmland with a history of heavy pesticide use, Those chemicals are in the soil, in the air, in the water, and ultimately in the plant. If it's grown indoors, it's often bug bombed with pesticides that soak into the walls and release toxins over time. Even if you buy from a small local grower, you are still at risk, unless they are doing rigorous third-party testing beyond what the state requires. Now that you see what's happening with legal cannabis, let's take it further, because this isn't just about bad weed. It's about how industries are structured to deceive you while still taking your money, still poisoning you, and still keeping you under control. We were told legalization would bring order to the chaos. Instead, it's just another game where the government pretends to regulate while corporations exploit loopholes to sell you garbage. Think about it. If California's regulators were serious about public safety, then why did they ignore whistleblowers from testing labs who warned them about fraud? Why did they let illegal pesticides be used out in the open without doing a single recall? Why did they spend millions on ad campaigns convincing you it's safe instead of enforcing actual safety standards? I'll tell you why. Because they don't care about your health. They care about market growth. They care about tax revenue. They care about investors making money off an industry that was supposed to be about freedom, but is now just another corporate scam. And this isn't just in California. This is everywhere legalization is rolling out. It's a blueprint for how to take something that was once illegal, commercialize it, and sell you the illusion of safety while cutting every possible corner. So if you think this is only about weed, think again. You might be thinking, okay, I'll just avoid dispensary weed and buy from my local grower. But here's the kicker. Legal and illegal cannabis are part of the same pipeline. Let me break it down. Some of the biggest legal brands source their weed from growers who also supply the illegal market. There are warehouses full of cannabis that are being sold under two different labels, one for legal shops, one for black market dealers. The same pesticides, the same toxins, the same cutting agents are being used across both markets. It's a free-for-all. The only real difference between legal and illegal weed, one gets taxed heavily and the other doesn't. And because taxes and regulations are so high, the black market is thriving. People still prefer street weed because it's cheaper and just as strong, sometimes even stronger. The promise that legalization would eliminate the illegal trade, that was a lie. If anything, it made the underground market even more sophisticated because now illegal growers know exactly what to avoid to pass as clean. Meanwhile, legal dispensaries are struggling to compete with the illegal market because state taxes and regulations make it expensive to sell legal weed. The bureaucracy around licensing is so corrupt that dispensary owners have to pay bribes just to operate. And because the illegal market is everywhere, the legal market has no real advantage except a storefront and some fancy packaging. If legalization was supposed to wipe out illegal weed, why is the underground industry still thriving? Now, this is where it gets even darker. Synthetic THC is quietly making its way into legal products. If you don't know what that means, listen closely. Real THC is plant-derived. It's what naturally occurs in cannabis. But synthetic THC is lab-created. It's designed to mimic the effects of natural THC, but it's made using harsh chemicals and conversion processes that leave behind unknown byproducts. And guess what? Synthetic THC is significantly cheaper to produce than growing real cannabis. It can be mass-produced in factories instead of farms. It's already flooding the market, especially in vape oils and distillates. And here's the real kicker. State regulators don't even test for it. That means you could be vaping lab-created THC that was never meant to be inhaled and you wouldn't even know it. Why are companies doing this? Because if you can cut your THC oil with synthetic THC, you can produce way more product at a lower cost while still charging premium prices. And it's not just THC. We're seeing cannabis products cut with vitamin E acetate, the same substance linked to the 2019 vaping lung disease outbreak. And people die from that, and yet it's still showing up in lab tests today. Again, this is happening under legalization. If you thought cannabis was the last honest industry, think again. Now let's get to the solutions, because I don't just want to wake you up to the problem, I want to give you a plan. If you're a cannabis user or just someone who cares about what's happening in this country, here's what you need to do. 1. Question everything you buy. Don't trust dispensary labels. Look for real third-party certifications, not just the weak state-approved sticker. Ask for the Certificate of Analysis, COA. This is the only document that tells you where your product came from and what's in it. 2. Avoid vape cartridges and distillates. The more processed the product, the more likely it's been tampered with. Stick to whole plant flower. It's harder to manipulate than oils and extracts. 3. Research your grower. If you can't trace where the cannabis came from, don't buy it. Small, independent farms are your best bet, but only if they do real testing beyond what the state requires. 4th, hold the industry accountable. Demand real oversight, not just marketing buzzwords. Spread awareness. Most people have no idea this is happening. Support whistleblowers, the people exposing this risk, their careers to tell the truth. If there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. This isn't just about cannabis. It's about how every industry operates under the illusion of regulation and safety, while actually prioritizing profit over human health. If they're doing this with weed, imagine what's happening with your food, your medications, your drinking water, your environment, your education, your life, anywhere that profit is prioritized over people. This isn't paranoia, this isn't theory, this is documented reality, and it's happening right now. But now you know. And once you see through the illusion, you can't unsee it. So ask yourself, what will you do with this knowledge? It's time to wake up.